Hi, my name's Reverend Tiff Ewins and I'm the vicar of St Michael's, Wandsworth Common. And this morning I want to reflect on a story that's in the Old Testament, and it's the story of a priest who, along with the rest of his people, was exiled out of his country and forced to live in the land of their oppressors, their aggressors. And that priest was called Ezekiel, the people were called the Israelites, and the aggressor was called Babylon. And so it was about 2,600 years ago that Ezekiel found himself literally by the rivers of Babylon, writing visions down that God was giving him, mysterious, enigmatic visions. And he was writing them down, and a lot of them were very bleak, and that's understandable because it was a very bleak time. And while the people were in exile, they had lost their land, they had lost their holy city, and he was writing effectively that things were going to get worse. And sure enough, they really did get worse for them, as eventually Jerusalem fell to Babylon, and two more waves of exiles were thrown out of their country. But when they were at their lowest point, when morale was at its absolute lowest for the people of Israel, God gave Ezekiel a strange and powerful vision. Ezekiel saw himself coming into a valley that was filled with dry, unburied human bones. And faced with this valley of hopelessness, God said to Ezekiel, "Can these dry bones live?" And Ezekiel didn't say, "No way, look at them." He said, "You know, Lord." And God said in his vision to Ezekiel, "That's right. So speak to the bones and make them live." And so Ezekiel prophesied over the bones, and the bones kind of regathered and were covered in sinew and flesh and skin, a reversal of decay, if you like. And finally, God breathes his spirit. Wind is the word in Hebrew, spirit, into the bones, and they become reanimated, resurrected, alive. And in that story, there's a couple of things that I wanted to take out from it. Firstly, this story has been told and reflected on through all human history through the last 2,600 years by the Jews and the Christians. So it's an amazing story to help us navigate hard times. Secondly, I want us to remember that story, that incident, that vision happened when people were at a really low point. And one of the things about it is to recognise where the people were at. They were really sad. It was a time of lament. They spent 40 more years after the vision of hope living in the land of Babylon, in the land of their oppressors. And we are in a difficult and a sad time, and things are going to get sadder for us. And actually, as people of faith, we can be tempted to say everything's going to be all right, look on the bright side, move on. But actually, courageous people of faith accept the sadness for what it is, pure sadness. We lament and we grieve, and we hold out our questions and our whys and our what ifs and our what onlys, and we do so with absolute honesty and authenticity. And in a time when we know that we're going to come across more sadness as a nation than perhaps we have in at least a generation, as people of faith, we are being asked to be honest, to be authentic about our sadness, our grief, our trauma, and our disappointment. All of these things are real. And still in our time of lament, God gives us a vision of the future, a hope. And the key thing about it is it's not the same as now. The future promise of God doesn't look the same as the life past. We know this because when Jesus rose from the dead at Easter, his friends, his closest friends, didn't recognize him to start with. He looked different. And new life always looks a bit different. New life isn't the same as the life before. The butterfly doesn't look like the caterpillar. And actually, we can try really hard to get things back to normal. We can work really hard on creating a new way of being for ourselves. But the key ingredient to new life, to real change, and to something that is distinctive is the breath of God into us. So in this time ahead, in these weeks ahead, try not to distract ourselves from the pain and the lament. Let's try and be authentic in all the things that are hard. And let's hope and pray for a new life that is animated by the Spirit of God, a new life that is genuinely new.